Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Jimmy Jones from the Islamic Center of America with one of our series for Ramadan built around revive our legacy, reform oneself, restore society. Most of us think of Ramadan as a time of reviving, restoring oneself, but we wanted to stretch it a little bit and look at the community. First, look at the individual, of course, and then look at the home, which we're going to do today. Then we're going to look at working within the Muslim community and then in the broader society. So today we have two special guests. One of them works a lot with TISA, but I'm sure her partner works a lot with TISA because that's the way life goes. If we volunteer for something, our partner's involved. And we're going to talk about leadership in the home and how you implement that. Dr. Mona Islam is on the faculty, she's on the board, and she's on the academic council of TISA. And so the whole point around this 20 minutes with TISA that we're doing during this blessed month of Ramadan is to infuse your Ramadan with some of the things that we think about and we teach at TISA in hopes that it'll be a benefit to you. So welcome Dr. Nadim Islam and Dr. Mona Islam to 20 Minutes with TISA.
Thank you for having us. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So why don't we start as a couple, right? As a husband and wife, what does leadership really mean to you in the relationship? Because as you know, we often have relationship issues in our community, and I admire what I see you do.
Sure. I think as a husband and wife team, the leadership is a very important part of raising a family. And my role is to set the vision and to set the priorities. Leadership in the house is like leadership anywhere. You have to be a leader and not the manager. And you have to set, you have to model the behavior, you have to motivate, and you have to show the family and kind of show them what the end goal is. We have great examples in the life of our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the way that he managed his affairs at home by being a very hands-on leader, and he modeled the behavior as far as being helpful around the house and being concerned with all the affairs, including the children. And so I believe that following the example of the Prophet ﷺ, it's important that we set the vision, the priorities, and to really provide a great example for our kids and family.
Hey, Dr. Nadim, I like that because the concept of teamwork is not often emphasized when we talk about the Prophet ﷺ. We just often talk about him by himself, but we don't talk about, as you pointed out, how he was in the household. Dr. Mona, what was like?
Yeah, so leadership in the family, first of all, the home is a place of sakina, right? It's a place that's supposed to be a place of tranquility and peace. And the family is the foundation of our community and society. The family is also a place where we claim our mutual rights by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, the leadership that we implement in the home and that we practice in the home is really a reflection of our taqwa, because it's where we practice Islam, both on a personal level and then in our duties and responsibilities and interactions with our family. And so first we have to know and understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, from us. It might be different, from what we assume. So we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us, about leadership in the home. For example, in Surah Al-Tahrim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O you who believe, save yourselves and your families from a fire whose fuel is men and stones." We also know in a hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that, he said that all of you are shepherds and responsible for your wards under your care. The imam is the shepherd of his subjects and is responsible for them. And a man is a shepherd of his family and responsible for them. A woman is the shepherd of her husband's house and is responsible for it. A servant is the shepherd of his master's obligations and belongings. His master's belongings, and is responsible for them. a man is a separate of his father's property and responsible for them. And that's from Bukhari. And so, in leadership in the home is leading by example. So that's where we do our self-care. We do our responsibilities. We encourage our immediate family members to fulfill their obligations to themselves and to their families and to their societies. We educate our children and our family members. We facilitate engagement within our communities and with our family members. And this is where we establish good and forbid evil. We also, cultivate, caring relationships so that we can guide, correct each other. We practice, consultation and shura. We honor each other's opinions and, take everyone's needs into consideration. And so this, creating this environment of trust and mutual respect and, setting the appropriate expectations, I think that this is, largely what goes into, when I think of leadership in the family.
So, Dr. Mona, I love the fact that you started off with 3 key words. One, sakina, the second, mutual rights, the third, taqwa. Because if you don't have this in the household, you're going to have trouble. You don't have peace in the household, right? If you don't have that mutuality, if you don't have it centered on God consciousness, there's likely to be trouble. Let me go to my next question to you, Dr. Mona. So we Muslims, we see ourselves as having obligations in a marriage to each other. But one of the primary things that we do, we have babies. And so we need to think about what our obligations are to the children that we have. How do you understand your obligations as a parent in the household in terms of leadership?
Of course. So our children are an amana that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, a trust, right? So we have to answer, to Allah for the way that we raise them. And so there's many rights that they have. So first of all, we as parents need to meet their physical needs. We need to make sure that they're cared for, of course. And I think that everyone across the board can agree on that. Children also have emotional needs, which our deen also guides us about. We have to respect them. We have to nurture them. We need to help them build a sense of identity and belonging. They need to feel a sense of security at home, and they need to feel that they are heard and that they're treated fairly among siblings, right? And so there's definitely a certain adab that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us with regards to dealing with our youth and our children. Additionally, in addition to their physical and emotional needs, we have the obligation to educate them. And of course, this is done in so many ways, everything from giving them knowledge through books, teachers, schools, that we choose, the classes, taking them to seminars, workshops, camps, putting them in the right environment. Additionally, socializing them is another obligation that we have, right? So teaching them their duties to other family members and to the community. So citizenship, giving them service learning opportunities, integrating them into family life, guiding them and correcting them along the way. And in order to do that, you actually have to also have good communication with your children. And this will help in the process of guiding and correcting them and getting them to open up about their frustrations and vulnerabilities and concerns. And of course, this requires a lot of sacrifice of a parent's personal time and energy and resources and comforts. And so, all of these
But it's
are
not really a sacrifice in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry I cut you off.
No. Those are some of the things that I wanted to share that are obligations as parents and the rights that children have, from parents.
So parenthood is an amana. It's a serious obligation. You should think about it, right? And you have to think about it while you're doing it, being a parent myself. And it's not easy. Dr. Nadim, what would you add to what Dr. Mona had to say?
So again, I think that it's important to model the behavior. So if you would like your kids to be more God conscious, then you've got to model that behavior. If you'd like for them to learn to respect parents, then you've got to model that behavior in the way that you treat your parents. So I think they learn a lot more from what you do more than what you say. So I think that's a very important obligation. In this day and age, I think friends are really the key. So you have to play a very active role in trying to help set up and so that they have good friends, because we all know that there's a certain age when they will reach where the influence of their friends are probably
They're not going to love being with you a lot. Yeah.
more important than what you say at some point around the teenage years. So you have to be very purposeful in as they're growing up to help put them in environments where they have good friends. And sometimes that means you have to support institutions that will help them, whether it's through Islamic schools or scouting or Sunday schools and other types of social arenas where they can start developing those long-term friendships that hopefully will take them through their teenage years. I think it's also important to give them some basic competencies in Islam, the Quran, the prayer, and the basics of the deen, which you can do when they're young, so that as they'll always have that with them, having a good amount of familiarity with the Quran and the Arabic will help them throughout their life. And just being consistent in your approach in guiding them, modeling good behavior, and really meeting their needs.
So the Quran is the foundation, right, for us all, if we're serious about this need. What both of you emphasize is that parenting is something done with intentionality, right? You just don't let it happen. I often tell parents, don't expect Islamic schools and the MSA to raise your children, because, mashallah, they may be part of the puzzle, but unless you've done it with intentionality, as both of you talked about, it's not going to happen. So this is Ramadan, and we're focusing on reviving our leadership legacy, reforming ourselves, and restoring society. So that leads me to the question, Dr. Nadim, how do you prepare? I mean, you have a partnership to deal with, you have your children to deal with, you have your outside obligation to deal with. How do you go about getting ready for Ramadan?
Personally, I try to make a little bit more time during Ramadan, so try to set my work schedule in such a way that it's less busy. Sometimes it requires months of planning to move things, so that Ramadan has a little bit more free time, especially in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Really trying to nowadays this year it's going to fall during spring break. So really capitalizing on the time that they have off, which is often on weekends and holidays, to make the best out of it. On the normal hustle bustle of weekdays with school, you really have to try to make sure you don't overdo it, so that they get adequate sleep and nutrition and can make it through school the whole day. But really capitalize on the weekends and holidays so that they can get in the spirit of Ramadan and do the qiyams and spend the time in the masjid and creating great memories that they will hopefully carry on. I think, this is a great time for family because you wake up for suhoor together and break iftar together. And this is an amazing opportunity to spend some time in the family. Everybody's very punctual about eating it for iftar and for suhoor. And so utilizing that opportunity to make it into a joyous occasion. It requires some planning to make sure that the food for the suhoor is all ready, that everything is kind of set so that we're efficient. And then iftar, we try to do the same. So I think Ramadan's a great family opportunity to bond with the family in addition to our own obligations during this time, and pray that we're able to take full advantage of this month.
Again, the proper planning. If you don't really think about Ramadan in advance, you might be doing the same thing the rest of the year, getting iftar and suhoor on the run in the office, grabbing a donut, this kind of thing. Unfortunately, some of us lose the blessings that way because we've only just stopped eating during the daytime, but we've kept our same schedule as we had the rest of the year. Dr. Mona, would you like to add to what Dr. Nadim said?
Certainly. So with Ramadan, definitely requires planning, and there's different aspects to that planning. You have the physical, tangible aspects, and then you also have like the spiritual aspects that need to be planned. So I would say definitely home organization is a huge part of getting the most out of Ramadan. So organizing your time, energy, money, and your space so that you can do what you need to do. So of course, the basic functioning of the house, that needs to be, your house needs to be running smoothly. So with regards to food, having that planned, groceries and food prep, those things need to be planned. Standards of cleanliness, regular laundry, grocery, those things need to keep going. And, trying to, give some basic expectations to the kids without overwhelming them, getting them to, do their duties and that sort of thing. So part of having a smooth Ramadan and doing your higher goals is to make sure those basic things, are function. If those things start falling apart, you're going to have a harder time getting, higher level things done. And then secondly, scheduling, right? So, there's some things, especially if you're, whether you're a very busy family or not, or you have a small, whether you have a big family or not, there's going to be some commitments that you have. Like, let's say in the whole month, there's going to be some family commitments that you can already put on your calendar, some community obligations. And of course, on a daily basis, you have suhoor and iftar. So when you're looking at your schedule, you can already pencil in, where that time is going, but then try to, when you make goals, try to utilize your time in a way where you can meet your goals in the other times, right? So, if we talk about goals, I know for myself, we try to create goals for the family, right? So we have 5 children and they're at 5 different age levels. And so I will go ahead and ask them. I started asking them since last week, what are your 3 goals for Ramadan? And it's going to look different for someone in middle school versus college. And then I'll meet with them and kind of have everyone write out their goals. And then we kind of follow up with them. And so, this is a time when, I encourage the kids to have goals, but we as adults and parents have goals as well. And then we try to encourage each other to meet those goals. So when you look at that monthly calendar, perhaps one weekend is very busy, but we can work on them more, on another weekend or at different times throughout the day. We create dua lists in advance, right? So that when we're sitting for iftar together, we can recite those duas together. There's, we try to revive as many sunnahs as we can. Another really big tool is creating lists, right? So whether those lists are for the groceries, for invitations, for the gifts, for Eid gifts, lists are like a really great tool just to get organized and manage, your time and manage everything. And then of course, you have to overcome obstacles when it comes to managing and scheduling. And so in order to achieve your individual goals, you'll have to think outside of the box a little bit. And as I mentioned, you might be really busy at one time, but then, let's say you want to encourage like finishing the Quran, that certain days you're just not going to give as much time. There might be other days which are not as busy. You can get a little bit extra done. And so, at the end, Ramadan is here to push us to, reach our potential. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that we've tried our best. And of course, being creative, in the process, trying to find other ways or alternative ways to meet, some of our goals, and being forgiving, towards ourselves is also important. So I think all of that goes into sort of managing ourselves in our households during Ramadan.
So a particular takeaway here is Shura is not just for the parents, that you need to sit down, face your children, no matter what the age, talk to them at their level, and you're likely to have a more cohesive effort. It's not going to be perfect because children are at different ages and people have different things to do, but it's more likely to be if you communicate. Okay, we only have a few minutes left in this second in the series of reviving our leadership legacy, refining ourselves, and restoring society in this beautiful month of Ramadan. I'm going to wrap up by asking you 2 different questions this time. One for you, Dr. Mona, to talk about ways in which, since this is a TISA series, the Islamic Center of America sort of supports individuals and institutions in doing some of the things you talked about. And I'm springing this on you, Dr. Nadim, but she's going first. You can think about it. To brothers, my experience in dealing with families is often the load is put particularly on the wife in terms of doing everything, working with the children, taking care of the food, taking them shopping. That's my experience. That's what I watch a lot. And my question to you after Dr. Mona finishes is, what's the biggest piece of advice that you can give to us brothers? Okay, so we're going to end with that. So, but why don't we go to Dr. Mona? Are there things that TISA, you're very involved in TISA as a teacher, you're on the academic council, you're on the board, so you know a lot about what we do that reinforces the kinds of things that you've been talking about here.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, just this series, as you mentioned previously, I mean, this series is about reviving our leadership legacy, reforming oneself and reforming society, restoring society. And so this idea of leadership, alhamdulillah, I think that Tisa does a great job of helping people understand that leadership is not an external thing where you just go outside of the home and you're a leader outside. It starts with yourself, right? So reform yourself. Ramadan is a perfect time to do that, where we talked about tazkiyah last week and purification of the self. You work on yourself, and it's like a building block that once you've worked on yourself, your family, and then you're able to be more effective in the community and society. But not only does TISA do a great job of just I think educating society at large. Even if you're not a student, there's always informationals and webinars and videos going out. But also just in the coursework itself, I feel that if you look at the course catalog, closely, you'll see that, there's emphasis in, teaching the true and authentic sources of Islam. So there's a really high emphasis on simply just understanding the Quran, the Sunnah, the Sirah. Many of our classes that are required, everything from advanced Quranic science and tafsir to advanced Hadith science, Hadith commentary, advanced Aqidah, advanced Sirah, these really build a solid foundation, which are instrumental and help us understand our obligations in Islam. But in addition to that, we have counseling across and cross-cultural communication, family counseling. These sort of courses also help support family and youth, but we actually even have specific courses such as fiqh al-mu'alamat, which is fiqh of family and effective youth work, which further support, an understanding of our obligations in the family and our relationships with youth. So I think that TISA actually does an exemplary job of kind of, solidifying all of this together. And inshallah, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to my husband.
Yep. Before you do, just anybody who wants to dig deeper into what Dr. Mona said, she said, take a look at the catalog. Just go to islamicseminary.us, click on academics, and then on the drop down, you'll find the catalog and you can do a deep dive. Okay, Dr. Nadim, you've had some time to think about this because I sprung it on you at the last minute. What advice would you give to us? Because at least in the circles that I am, the burden of realigning the household and realigning the family often falls to the wife and mother.
Yeah, I think that it's important for us to follow the example of our Prophet ﷺ and lead by example. So everyone working together, after suhoor, and just making sure that everything's put away, waking up in the morning with the wife and helping set up when possible. I think the idea of being a servant leader is something that it's important in leadership. And also, I think it's important to work smart, so you don't always have to work. There are ways nowadays to leverage technology and help that you can work in a way that it's not overburdening for everybody. So this is a great time to leverage having things delivered to your house, having someone come and help, clean up the home during Ramadan, and just kind of leveraging all the different resources that you may have to make sure that Ramadan is a time of peace and a time of much fulfillment. But we must always, lead by example and understand, the role of being the leader in the house.
Excellent. That's an excellent place to start because you said follow the Sunnah. If you want a model of what you should do as a husband, follow the Sunnah, right? Use modern technology, right? And use these things that delivery services that we didn't have before COVID, right? And then you should think about what as we said throughout, you should think about what you do. I want to thank both of you because I know you're both very, very busy, both with your families and the work outside of the community. And I want to thank you for all that you do. I want to invite folks watching to look at the other videos in a series around reviving our leadership legacy. reforming ourselves and restoring society. After all, that's what we're trying to do here at TISA. And that we would encourage you, as I said before, if you want to take a deeper dive, go to our website. And if you want to talk to one of us, you can reach out to us. In the meantime, have a blessed and bountiful Ramadan, and may Allah Ta'ala bless and accept your fasting, your good deeds. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.